reverse, or do I say explain what he meant when he was at Komarok on that question of presidential terms? And here is what he said there in Komarok.
Kama Muigai Uhuru Kenyatta atasema after the new constitution tumeiunda. Na aseme ndugu Kalonzo mimi nataka kuendelea mbele. Nitamwambia nitakusupport. I said it. Unanielewa? Lakini kama atasema Kalonzo hii mzigo hii chukua.
Talking about kuelewa. Ni kama hatukuelewa. He tried to make us elewa when he came for Hussein's show
on Newsnight, yes.
On Newsnight. But even then, probably made many more people not to elewa him. I don't know whether you elewed him, Linus.
It's not easy to understand the former vice president sometimes, especially because he gets this tendency to misspeak. There are things that he would say, and moments later he would want to take back. He said that in Komarok, and when he sat here with Hussein Mohammed, he tried to take it back or explain it in a way that was not even clear. But yes, it is the season of lack of clarity politically. It's very, it's an awkward time for politicians, especially those who are positioning themselves for 2022, those who are positioning themselves for whatever the handshake presents. So there is this new flow or outpouring of emotion, especially around supporting President Kenyatta. And what I read in there is this is an incumbent who constitutionally, as per the current constitution, is not going to run for office. So obviously, being in their good books can give you a good starting point. So Kalonzo has done this before. He's done this with Mwai Kibaki to the point of becoming deputy president, vice president at the time. And now we are seeing him trying to fit into the arrangement, because the handshake has somehow changed a lot of things, because it has created a pedestal where the president and former prime minister sit, and then there is another one with the deputy president, and now there is everybody else. Where do they sit? So that's the conversation.
Playing catch-up, sort of, because you remember there was some resistance, subtle one.
Naturally.
Even saying
naturally.
It was there initially, especially from the NASA guys who were saying we were left by Tinga when he went to negotiate with Uhuru.
Yes.
But now probably I think they realize that
this thing is going.
It's big.
It is. I mean, and I think something you said about it being a pedestal, it almost seems like this handshake has become a shrine to which everybody goes to pay their respects. And they go there and they kneel and they bow, and you know, it becomes pandering to, I mean, there was a statement that he made to saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta is the best president Kenya has ever had. Okay, he very well might be, but you've noticed since the handshake, everybody's falling all over themselves, where support means no critique. Even if you take a look at all of these proposals that are being made by Raila Odinga and all the others, they seem to be speaking the same tone. In fact, you remember during the anti-corruption conference, I mean, Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta were on the same side, talking about the faults in the judiciary. I mean, they were literally speaking the same language. And, you know, Kalonzo Musyoka is not too far behind. He seems to be falling in line. So even if he may be the best president we've ever had, I would at least expect out of all of them, somebody to do that. And I think this is one of those issues with the handshake, that everybody's just falling all over themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that you have to understand where the former vice president is coming from. In a sense, he is trying to find his footing. Remember, this is someone who ran as Raila Odinga's running mate, and who on that March 9th, or shall we say shortly after, emerged to say, I just saw people on the steps of Harambee House. My brother was there shaking hands with the president, and he said he had absolutely no idea about it. I mean, there have been an argument back and forth about that, but he says he had no idea. Then suddenly, we see him gravitating towards this handshake, and gravitating, I think, more towards Uhuru Kenyatta. What does he say to Uhuru Kenyatta in this context? Because Uhuru Kenyatta still has William Ruto somewhere in the wings. He hasn't said to anyone, at least publicly, where he will stand, Uhuru Kenyatta, I mean, in 2022. So everybody is trying to sort of woo him in the very same way that all those suitors will be going after a beautiful bridesmaid. So there's a sense in which Uhuru Kenyatta is sitting there, like that could be more fitting on Valentine's Day, right. But he's sitting there and seeing all these people falling over themselves to try and sort of bring flowers. Catch, as they say, catch his eye. And I think that is where a lot of politicians, not just Kalonzo Musyoka, and you have to be found on the right place when 2022 comes. Yeah. So you have to understand these politicians trying to position themselves, because woe unto you if you are found on the wrong side of political history, so to speak. By the time the bell rings,
and where is the right side?
I think
that right side is very clear
right now.
I think for all of them, yes, exactly. And it's a really big problem. Potea both ways, the right position to be. You may be here.
Actually, President Kenyatta, Francis, President Kenyatta today sits where President Moi sat in March 2002, when he managed to get Raila Odinga to dissolve his NDP. And there was Uhuru Kenyatta, and KANU was a strong party. You know, 3/4 of the powerful, politically connected people were from KANU. And all of a sudden, there was this array of talent in one tent. And, you know, he never gave that indication. Remember, he only gave the indication after May that his preferred successor is...
but it led to a stampede.
It led to a stampede.
Ninataja huyu kwanza.
Yes. And you know, that's very interesting. I don't know what the rest was supposed to do, because he sort of promised them that
but there was nothing else.
But speaking of Kalonzo, an event that happened recently comes to mind, the Yatta meeting that was attended by one Murathe, who's the former vice chairman of Jubilee Party, and he was there sort of like looking like he was wooing Kalonzo. He says alikwenda hapo kuangalia mambo iko vipi, akona mambo iko sawa. In fact, one of the things you're saying they're thinking about how Central Kenya can pay a debt to Kalonzo Musyoka for helping to stabilize the country. Remember 2007 presidential election, the disputed ones, alipita katikati yao. So there is that aspect that I keep thinking about.
The debt?
Yes, he did.
No, but I mean, look,
but the debt issue,
Murathe has also appeared to be gravitating toward Mudavadi, for example. Yeah. I think it's just really because he said he doesn't want the deputy president to take over from...
so it's everyone else.
Yeah, so he's just trying to make him unhappy, like, you know, trying to tell him, you know, these are the options.
We have options.
We are playing with many options.
Doesn't this then bring us to the question of the grave or gross political conmanship around us? I mean, everybody will be promised this, and it will not come. Even sometimes when you can clearly see that to quote unquote anaenjoyiwa.
Anaenjoyiwa, taking advantage
of him. The currency of our politics is betrayal.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah. And first of all, because all these gentlemen, and it happens to be all of them are men, they just want one position, the presidency. But how many of them can occupy? In 50-something years now, how many years have we done of independence? We've had only 4 occupants of that office. Yeah. That's how long it takes, 50 years. Now you have about 6, 7 currently, all of them jostling for Uhuru's goodwill. Give me some... give me a signal.
Support me so that I can have a chance at 2022.
In 2022. Yeah. So there is this issue of... also the coveted prize. It is the presidency. Number 2 is the patronage culture of our politics. Really, leadership in this country is passed on. People are created sometimes, not by voters. Not by voters. At least we've seen in the last few elections that leaders are created first, either in the boardroom or backroom, before they are presented for adoption. So August 8th, you adopt. It's an aye or nay, you know. But the decision is someone else's, which is why you see them crowding around Uhuru this way. It's very, very important too.
But the problem is, Yvonne, while these promises are being dished out and everybody is looking out to Uhuru to make that decision and say, Nihuyu. When he says Nihuyu, won't it lead to a serious stampede that will undo all what we have been trying to do in the last few months or so since the handshake and the building bridges initiative, i.e. if you went there with the promise of support and you don't get it either from the former prime minister or from the president, then you'll feel betrayed and then walk out and form another team out there. So it will be another clash, another contested election in 2022.
Which is why the president is, at least on the face of it, steering clear of this. I mean, you remember that media roundtable? He said, I do not even ask me about that question of 2022. He said, I don't want to go there. I guess this decision will be made at some point, and I think also the referendum will sort of now set.
But I don't think he was as angry as he sounded. In my view, it's a very good defense mechanism.
Of course, like I said,
so that no one.
Yes, so on the face of it, it's no, I don't want to be involved.
You find
but he
so
might
angry,
obviously
he will not even say what he wanted to say.
But there's a lot of things that are happening.
Hey, you guys, leave me alone. I'm not figuring this thing out. So I need time to do that.
However, that does not mean that a lot of machinations are not happening behind the scenes. I mean, I think everything that is happening now is typical of a political cycle, except the curtains have been opened and we're now privy to all of these things that are happening behind the scenes. Typically that happens, just not with this one. And which is why what you were saying about, the currency and the focus still being on that one seat, despite us being would you say typically in the second phase of devolution, where the idea was to say, the presidency isn't as important and to sort of remove that and bring it down to the county levels. That is what is interesting. I'll take you back to the deputy president at Chatham House who said, and this was an interesting thing, he posed this question, do we have the constitutional moment to prosecute these reforms? Who is driving this? I mean, if you recall 2005, 2010, CKRC, Committee of Experts, all of these, and it was coming from the grassroots, from the people, from civil society organizations. But this time, I mean, this whole referendum, a third term that is being, talked about by Kalonzo Musyoka, it seems like the drive to change the constitution, if that is it, is coming from the top rather than it coming
you
from
raise a very important issue. You raise a very important issue on whether there is a constitutional moment and what is driving this. Honestly, there isn't any right now. That is why even the principles, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, are both saying it's about this winner takes it all election. Why do we always fight during elections? So the election is being used as a bad dog to create the constitutional moment. Because everybody is being told, did you see how we nearly fought last year? Why are we always divided every 5 years? When actually the issue is about counting and tallying. But this will be used to create that constitutional moment.
But remember also, it creates the sustaining power for the handshake, because without some kind of seemingly big idea, then the handshake does not exist. Because
it's raison d'etre.
Exactly. It answers the question of what next after the handshake, or at least attempts to do so. So that is why you find Raila Odinga pushing it very hard, because I mean, what was that handshake about? So you have to have something that you can be going back to your supporters and saying, this is what that thing was about. And because the dispute that then eventually led to the handshake was about the election, the natural place, politically speaking, the natural place that is politically sellable for these people is to talk about a referendum, that we are going to change these things so much so that next time no one is going to steal our vote. Because that was
but at least the mentality never changes. The winner takes all that Linus is speaking about. Everybody wants that one seat. Of course, we have those who are suggesting, I think including even the president, because he said he had a problem with the winner takes all mentality, that we need to have a few more people on the table, maybe like a powerful prime minister, maybe like a deputy president, maybe 2 deputy prime ministers. And I think
not forgetting that those ones will come from the winning side.
From the winning side, exactly.
The deputy
so instead of one winner, there'll be 5 winners.
There'll be 5 winners.
Yes. So why vote?
And that thing about tutaka wapi, tupatikane at the right side of everything. But the voting in this country, and you've said it before, inaharibikiaga not at the voting session. Watu wanapiga kura.
Not even at the counting level.
Not even at the counting level. Inaharibikiaga at the tallying. Pale unatangaziwa matokeo.
But Linus, they said, at least some of the proposals that I have seen even prescribed that of the 5, no 2 of them should come from the same place. So I think the assumption is that when you have the 5, I'm just trying to explain how these people understand that concept, that if you have the 5, then it means that you will have what some people have called the Big Five. And
exactly.
What about regional representation in those Big Five?
Come from Narok, like that's
exactly.
a different story. But I think their point is that the trouble about elections in this country, if we are talking about post-election violence and other things, usually don't come from Narok.
No, they don't.
And by Narok, I mean the Maasai who live in Narok, you understand? It usually comes from...
You're talking about the Maasai numbers, I know.
but usually comes from other people. But that is the point, that if you take care of these five, it's ridiculous in many respects. But
Francis, just a moment, because there's a text here from one Amos Chemabus, who says, I find it a waste of time and resources to focus on a referendum while we have not fixed the problem of communication infrastructure that could assist in easy transmission of election results. Many parts of the country do not even have network connection.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Very solid. In fact, there's a guy called Bing Charlie. He's saying, you guys should understand that in Africa, the incumbent has 30% votes in his hands.
Already.
His preferred candidate just needs to win an additional 21%.
Are you discussing?
If in doubt, refer to DRC 2019,
right.
Kenya 2013, and Tanzania 2016.
And Nigeria this weekend.
In fact,
the ballot papers like this.
And Dudley Mushiri, he's saying, talk of political carnage. Let me quote something I heard someplace. There is no justice in politics. Anything can happen when it comes to politics, especially politics surrounding the presidency. Two questions quickly before we take a break. Uhuru's influence towards 2022, is it there?
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
It is.
I mean, a lot of the things that we're seeing happening, there's a hand behind it. And it's of the person who says the most, the loudest, that I want nothing to do with it, I think.
Let me put it see it from a regional perspective. Because this country is also about regional kingpins. And I want to compare 2022, it's still coming, and 2013, when President Mwai Kibaki was exiting the scene. When President Mwai Kibaki was exiting the scene, his opinion did not matter to the people of Central Kenya. Actually, the quiet word to him was, you served your time, just finish and leave and retire. That was afforded then because here was another leader in Uhuru Kenyatta who had come a strong second in the 2002 election and supported Kibaki in 2007 election, and therefore had created his own base as the ultimate leader of Central Kenya. Now, you look at the horizon of the Central Kenyan politics, there isn't a leader of Uhuru Kenyatta's profile, which is why, at least from the regional perspective, he'll walk strong into the 2022 election and his opinion will count. More than Kibaki's did in 2013.
We're going to take a break now, ladies and gentlemen. We have much more on News Gang, something about staggering IBC election dates. Right back in a short while. Thank you.